there! So I've gotten a few requests, people that are curious about the pottery process and what it takes to fire a piece that you glaze, return to me, and what that whole process looks like. So I thought I would take you along. We find ourselves in this strange time full of anxiety with quarantine. And if this provides some education and some entertainment, then I've accomplished two goals for today. So what happens is people get what we call bisque, or sometimes it's greenware I glaze, and it looks like this. This is one of my coffee mugs in process. This is an earthenware. Actually, this is a stoneware coffee mug that is in the greenware stage. That means I've sculpted it and built it by slab work out of clay. This is a stoneware clay. It's dry, but it's not fired yet. So that's what we call greenware. This will get fired once. All of these cups are in the greenware stage, so they are raw clay that's been dried, sitting here for a couple of weeks now. The drying process is important. No water can be in a greenware piece when it goes in the kiln. It needs to be completely bone dry. That is because water, when it reaches 212 degrees, it will boil or steam, and that will expand the clay and it'll crack or explode in my kiln, and we don't want that to happen. So all of these mugs are carefully dried for weeks and weeks. If I have the time, sometimes when I need to speed that up, I'll do a quick dry process, and I use my kiln to do that. And then from there, it gets fired once, and then sometimes you get it. It looks much like this, but smaller in the bisque stage. That's a once fired product. Then you get glazes. Glazes look like this. I have glazes here. Glazes everywhere, in fact. So some of these are underglazes, which is a pigmented clay. Some of these glazes have a clear glaze compound built into it, so it's shiny as a one-step process. Most of the times people that work with ceramic canvas are getting a product that is bisque. You glaze it with a underglaze, and then it comes back to me and I clear coat it. And that's what I'm going to show you right now. So this is what it looks like when you give it back to me and I clear glaze it. These have all been clear glazed. This bluish glaze will fire to a nice shiny clear. And some examples of a shiny clear glazed product when it's done. I have some of these on the wall. So this clear glaze, I don't know if you can see that shine. So it looks blue when it's on the pottery before it heads into the kiln. Then I take all of these pieces to the kiln. In fact, I'm going to take you along with me. So this is the utility side of my basement where I do all of my firing. This is what it looks like in the kiln when it's empty. I am just beginning to load some pieces that you've all done, and I have clear glazed for you. I stilt them, which means every piece gets an application of glaze, and then they get stilted up on these little platforms so that the glazed product does not stick to my kiln shelves. Very important process. And I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to load everything in the kiln that you have been sending to me, glazed. Beautiful work. I've covered it all with that clear one coat. I'm going to load that into the kiln now, and I'll be back and show you what that looks like. Okay, so I wanted to show you what the first layer of the kiln looks like. I've loaded some cereal or soup bowls in the bottom layer of the kiln and some sunflower plates. and I've added a second tier or shelf on top of those bowls. So before I completely cover up that first level, I want to show you what it looks like. So this is the floor of the kiln here, and there's a split shelf at the bottom. I've put the first layer of glazed pottery in there. There's some plates, and if you look carefully, there's some bowls in that lower level. I've stacked them up with kiln shelf supports and a kiln shelf, and then I'll continue to stack pottery and add those shelves as I go. Okay, so I have the kiln loaded. The last shelf was put on, and I've added some more of the ceramic pieces to fire. So the kiln is full, ready to go, and I just want to take you through these final steps in the process to see what it looks like when I prepare to fire. So I have added another shelf, coffee mugs, cookie mugs, and we have some plates and figures. In the firing process, potters use cones, pyrometric cones, to tell us what temperature it is in the kiln. Two important cones in my kiln process is a set of witness cones, which looks like this. These witness cones will tell me how hot my kiln got, and ultimately I am looking for my kiln to reach a cone 06 for this glaze firing. When it's successful, the witness cones will tell me that my kiln reached the desired temperature, that the glaze needed to mature and vitrify, which turns the clay particles into glass, essentially. When the firing is complete and my kiln is off and cooled down and I open it up, this is what I am looking for. So these are 3 cones from my last firing, a cone 07, 06, and an 05. These witness cones tell me that my kiln got hotter than 05. The target goal temperature was 06, and it didn't quite reach the temperature of 05, which is hotter than what I needed. So I was showing you what the kiln sitter cone does. It looks like this. When it's triggered the kiln to shut off, what essentially it does is it looks like this. And when the kiln reaches the desired temperature, basically this little cone slumps and it triggers the kiln to shut off, and the kiln has reached the temperature that I have asked it to reach for the particular pottery or glazing that I need to do. So I am going to set this now and turn on the kiln, close the door. I'm going to have my pottery assistant film for me. Okay. So I'm going to set the kiln sitter cone in. This is the cone that tells the kiln how hot it needs to go. This is a safety valve, just in case I didn't set the kiln sitter cone properly. The kiln has a backup shut-off. I turned everything on. One important thing I forgot. I forgot to put my witness cones in. So let's do that now. This is my target temperature, 06. This will melt first. The kiln is hotter than this cone 07. And cone 05, If that melts, that means my kiln got too hot. So I want to be somewhere in the middle. Okay, I am going to close the kiln lid now. Let's back up just a little bit so everyone can see what that looks like. Okay, so our kiln is on. It's set for a low temperature for the first hour. I have set the back up to 7 to 8 hours, and the first hour is going to ramp up slowly on low, second hour is medium, and then hour 3 through 6 will be high temperature. These are peepholes. I need to plug those up so that we get a nice, efficient, hot heat. So that's what these peephole plugs look like. Two more. We always leave that top hole open. It allows a good exchange of air. And I even just prop up the top of the kiln for that first half an hour. It allows some of that, the gas and some of the steam to escape from the drying glaze. Emma, do you want to hold this for me, honey? Just like that. So I prop up the kiln like this. It allows some good air exchange. It allows some of that moisture last minute moisture to escape the kiln. And we're ready to go. So this is going to take about 6 hours to glaze fire to an 06 cone. And sometime tomorrow afternoon when the kiln cools enough, I will open it up and see all of your beautiful work, and I'll take you along and you get to see it with me.